I also want to bring in Irshad Manji. She is the director of the Moral Courage Project at New York University's Wagner School of Public Service, and she is author of Allah, Liberty, and Love, The Courage to Reconcile Faith and Freedom. Thank you so much for being here. And I was telling you that I was so struck by Alice Hoagland, one of the mothers of the victims of 9/11 earlier, who really unprovoked, or, I didn't bring it in the conversation. She brought into the conversation that she hoped today people would remember about the relationship with Islam, that people's hearts would be open, that this would not be an opportunity to bring back some of the negative memories. And I'm wondering where you think we are with that 10 years later.
Sorry to say, I think we're more confused than we are clear about this relationship between Muslims and non-Muslims. I see it among my fellow liberals actually all the time. Liberal non-Muslims fear being called bigots and racists and Islamophobes for just having questions about my faith of Islam. And liberal Muslims like myself fear, expressing our own points of view, because on the one hand, there are Islam supremacists who will instantly call us sellouts and traitors, and on the other hand, Islam bashers who suspect that we're just terrorists in waiting. So there are layers of intimidation that really need to be cut through, I think, over the next many years.
And obviously a lot of this bubbled up over the controversy over the mosque near Ground Zero. And I've been surprised by the number of people over the last week or so, as we've talked more and more about the anniversary of 9/11, who have asked me, what's going on with that? And the range of opinions are so great. Where do you think that conversation can and should go? Can it be a positive conversation? Or, how do we take these questions and these controversies and turn them to understanding?
It can only become a positive conversation, in my view, if people stop reacting to the other emotionally. One of the things I noticed last year around this toxic atmosphere of the so-called Ground Zero mosque is that people would say to me, well, I'm going to support the mosque because I want to offend, I want to make angry those idiots, and they'll use other words, who oppose it. And I would say to them, that's the reason to support the mosque? How about looking at the issue on its own merits? But everybody seemed to be reacting to a person or to a group of people that they hated, rather than calming down, taking a deep breath, looking inside themselves and judging the issue for what it was. I see that far too often now, not just between, again, Muslims and non-Muslims, but within, the political culture that we have today, Republicans versus Democrats, all of this. I really feel that this country needs to pull together, and Americans, both Muslim and non-Muslim, need to forgive one another if we're actually going to heal enough to then take on the larger issues of terrorism, global terrorism, that we all face.
I have asked the question over the last couple of days, wouldn't it be a remarkable tribute to those who lost their lives, not just at the Pentagon in Shanksville and at Ground Zero, but at Iraq and Afghanistan? Wouldn't it be remarkable if we could come together as a country once again the way we did in the days after 9/11? Do you think that's possible? Do you think that watching all of this over the last several days might bring about some, at least subtle, change?
I wish I could be positive about my answer. I would hope so, but I really also anticipate that the coming election campaign will be among the nastiest, most noxious, political campaigns that we've seen in a very long time in this country. I really believe it's going to get worse before it gets better. But as a Muslim who is living in New York City, somebody who feels very, very safe around all kinds of people.
You said you think it's the safest place to live.
I do. I've had personal experience with counterterrorism forces around the world, the New York Police Department, no contest, knows what it's doing. And moreover, Chris, I would remind your viewers that, just a couple of weeks ago, the Pew Research Center for Religion and Public Life came out with a brand new survey of Muslim Americans and found that 80%, cumulatively 80% of Muslim Americans surveyed believe that their neighbors are very friendly to them or treat them in a neutral way. Those are stunningly high numbers. Clearly, Muslim Americans also, for the most part, feel comfortable and even content living in this country.
Probably as high a percentage as almost any minority group might feel. You also made one more interesting point before we came on the air, and I was talking about the fact that so many people who have faced this tragedy, and we're seeing the faces of them now there with the First Lady, have turned it into something positive. And you see it on a large scale with the people from 9/11. I've seen it on a small scale with a family that has lost a child, and a small scale in the sense of one individual, this obviously dealing with almost 3,000 individuals. You say that's uniquely American.
I believe it. I believe it is uniquely American. I'm actually a Canadian citizen who now teaches at New York University, so I live here in New York, but with one foot in and one foot out, I see how unbelievably optimistic this country continues to be despite the despair. And having traveled the world more than once, I can also tell you that nowhere else in the world is there that kind of forward-looking sort of investment, emotional investment in people's own country. I told you off the air that I really hope if one thing comes out of all of this, it is that Americans remember what we used to be before 9/11 and restore that, because the precedent is there. We've been this before, we can be again.
Irshad Manji, on those great words, thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank
I really appreciate it. And we are going to continue to watch as the President and First Lady, again, taking their time, spending many, many minutes, something that's quite remarkable, to speak with members of the families of those who lost their lives at the Pentagon, 184 men, women, and children. And though, as Vice President Biden said, no memorial, no ceremony, no words will ever fill the void left in your hearts by their loss, surely their time today there, feeling the love of a country truly, if not the world, could provide some help. We'll be right back with more from Ground Zero from Alex Witt.